Albert Einstein once said that the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And I think our guest today actually exemplifies that in very, very meaningful ways. She has been named Marketer of the Year. She has won several awards as an advertising marketing executive. She brings business, savvy skills, strategy, marketing, advertising, and more. She has worked with many organizations such as Mondelez, Vodafone, Marico, and her most recent stint is as director and CMO at Amazon Pay. So imagine she's here orchestrating a complex web of all of these ecosystems, and she's done this in lots of different ecosystems. So it's my pleasure to introduce to all of you Anuradha Aggarwal, who will be our guest today. I think two things I wanted to quickly just mention. The first is that Anuradha represents Anuradha today, not Amazon. So her views are her views and her personal experiences, which I think I'm thrilled to say that you'll absolutely enjoy. And then the second thing I want to say is that Anuradha is none other than our Apurva's sister. And so I'll let you judge who played which role in the Aggarwal family as well, too, towards the end of the episode. So without any further delay, Anuradha, welcome.
Hi, thank you very much.
Let me get us started. As I mentioned, lots of different organizations done different things, some in technology, some now in finance, working in biscuits, and a broad range. Can you please reflect on the diversity of these experiences?
So in the 25 years that I've been around the professional sun, I've been in 5 different industries. And the one I've spent the most amount of time is the consumer products industry. And then, of course, I've been in telecom. I've done some work with media, and now I'm with financial services. The one thing that I've learned through this journey is that you never say never. Because I always said I would never do a financial services job, and here I am. I never thought I would do a technology job, and I discovered that I was a nerd working for Vodafone because I really was interested in what was going on inside the phone, inside the digital ecosystem. So I think the one thing I would say is that my learning agility is what has helped me navigate this slightly unconventional journey that I've had. So it's not been linear. It's not been upwards in one industry or one organization. I spent 13 years at Unilever, and that was like my grounding to start with.
That was your first job?
That was my first job out of campus, and I kind of felt like that's where I was going to be. And then when I left, I didn't realize that I'm going to go work across different industries. But every industry that I've moved in, I've learned something new. I've added something to my repertoire. And I think even as I come into this very new world for me, I have no tech experience, no financial services experience, no e-commerce experience. Even as I've come in here, I think what I learned 20 years ago still holds true. So I almost feel like this is like the book of learnings that you keep collecting, and the book becomes thicker as you go along. Sometimes very old things that you learned when you were a management trainee still come true because you go back to first principles. So if I was to say what is common across all of this, I would say it's first principle thinking. Ask why maybe 5 times before you get to an answer. Learn before you speak, which can be tough when you join as a leader. And third is, learn to harness the power of people. Because for me, that becomes very important when you're working in an industry that you've never been part of before.
That's fantastic.
One question I had, and of course, I've seen your journey so closely, so I'm finding it strange to ask this. But all of these have been also very successful stints. So what has been the constant driver of the success that you would say?
I would say drive. I think what's fundamental.
Apurva was hoping you'd say Apurva.
She's been one constant niggle in my life also.
So not a driver, but
But yeah, I mean, of course, my family is a constant. The need to achieve was like put into us as kids very early in our life, and We were always high achieving, high striving, kids and family. My father and brother are from the IIT. My mom is a PhD in physics. So it was not doing well was never an option. But having said that, I think that only holds you till, like, in good stead till a certain time. After that, you kind of discover what drives you. So if I was to say what's in common is definitely drive to do well, uh, not being able to do things in half measure. So I'm generally passionate about whatever I do. So whatever I dive into, I'll know everything well, and I will make sure that
And you give it your all.
I'll give it my all.
Even
Right?
when she's counseling.
Yeah, that's true. I have a lot of. I do hold a lot of like responsibility there is. Let's say that, and my stakes are very high. So I don't, and I really believe that the way you do some small things is also how you do some big things. So I think I'm generally a high stake person, and I put high stake in most of the actions and activities I do. So I'm an all in person, and whenever I go, I kind of do the same.
Great. I want us to focus a little bit on representation. Can you share your perspective on its importance to you, and why every organization should strive to be more representative?
I don't think this is new news to say that having diversity of opinions and experiences adds value to organizations. I think it adds value to any conversation. If you have like clones around you, you get only one kind of outcome. And I think a lot of old organizations have also realized that that only takes you to a certain place. And suddenly you're not representing the people you serve, you don't represent your consumer. So representation is very important, because that's what we do. We finally end up, like in CPG, we used to say that if you don't have any women on the table, how are you selling, products which are relevant for women? In e-commerce, we have this conversation around, can we represent the tier 2 and tier 3 customer? In payments, we have this conversation of, are we only talking to the affluent customers, or are we talking about people for whom budget management is valuable? You need representation of opinions. When it comes to maybe women representation, which I'm assuming you're touching upon, it becomes important because we are 50% of the world. And I think that point of view is really necessary to be represented on, in a room. I think it becomes difficult for organizations, because if the ecosystem isn't ensuring that enough maybe representation is happening at every level, then sometimes you have to take some affirmative action. And there's a lot of debate around whether it's a good thing to do affirmative action, whether you should, actively recruit women at different levels. And I believe that that with change comes pain. And there is some pain that both the organization as well as the women who will be these, leaders and will have to carry. So the pain that organizations have to go through is a change in culture. And everything from not being laddish and not being, learning how to calibrate what you speak and being sensitive to people around you in all diversity situations, to having ecosystems which help women grow. I think it's very important. Women have to go through this element of that they will be for a little while in the limelight as people who have been brought in as a result of affirmative action. And I've been in that situation. And I remember a conversation with the Vodafone global CEO once saying, "Why, I don't want to be put in the limelight, and I don't want to be this person who people say you were recruited because, you're a woman." And he keeps saying you were recruited despite the fact that you were a woman, because you were a woman. It's interesting that in most situations you are definitely the best person for the job, and you're a woman. So no organization makes bad trade-offs, because finally it will show up.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a realization we have to build in representation.
And it goes a long way in terms of role models.
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons that, Arun and I are doing this is our India representation in leadership can be improved. Now we hire really smart women from colleges, but the longevity of theirs doesn't happen, right? Somewhere in their journey, 4-5 years, they're looking at different, decisions and priorities in life, and we lose them. Any guidance from you, and somebody comes to you in terms of, I'm thinking of quitting and I'm going through some roadblocks. What do you think should be the discussion?
So it's
there?
interesting. We've had this conversation at various points in time in life. I have 2 children, and I have worked through my maternity and all of the trials and tribulations that come up with living away from family, and I don't have a family support system where I live. And very often in the environment, I've had this question come up to me saying, what am I trading off, right? So I think young women go through that constant conversation of trade-off in their mind, like a trade-off of, am I trading off bringing up my children or family, or is this worth it? I think most of the time the conversation is this difficulty in my life right now worth it? And I think that it's important for them to be able to see people around them who have passed that hump, because it is a hump in life. People speak about how in this world, in the journey, the career journey peaks at the same time that your family journey speaks. Like it's exactly middle ages and it's middle management, and it happens at the same time. I think organizations have to help women through that hump. But I've had young girls come and say to me that, when I look at you and I hear your story about the fact that you've managed to work for 25 years, have kids who are 20 years old, without any family support system, no one living with you, and making transitions, hard transitions from company to company, it makes me feel like I can do it too. So I think it's very important to have this some role modeling in the organization or in the industry. That really helps. But when someone comes and talks to me that, I'm having a really hard time or I want to quit, I have this, and it sounds a bit jnani, I know that I have this thing from the Gita which Krishna told to Arjun, saying this, you can say this to yourself in good times and you can say this to yourself in bad times, that this too shall pass. That this is not permanent. It doesn't stay like this.
The one other thing that you sort of said in passing that I want to dig into a little bit is this notion of personal networks. Can you expand a little bit on the power of, because oftentimes when we talk about representation, we talk about the role of mentors at work and what we as leaders at work ought to do. But you brought in this notion of this personal network. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on that.
So that's interesting that you say that. I am a serious believer in building networks. And for me, the network is not professional or personal, it's people.
Yeah.
So I don't think I can call myself a people collector, but I am a people collector. So I don't know about that, but yes, I genuinely have interest in finding out about people, and that helps me make connections. I believe that that's not something that women do enough, and they think of networking as a bad word and is something that they shouldn't do in their life. And I feel like it's diffidence that keeps them away from it. I think you just have to get to know people, number one. When you get to know people, your personal network, of course, expands. But there's always this concentric circles thing in life, right? So there's you and there's your family. And my family was a little far away. Our parents were still working. So it's not like I had a support system around that. But I mean, they were there when I needed them. But I developed an ecosystem of friends. And I have a really solid ecosystem of friends. Interestingly, all the women in my network are super successful corporate women. So it's not like we can drop things and come and pick up your child from school, or it's not a functional support system. Although that's helped too. Friends who've been living in the building or that network and things like that. But these are people that I lean on for both professional and personal support, emotional support. So when you go through a tough time at work, these are the people you call saying, I'm having this challenge, and they'll tell you, I've been through it, don't worry. Or, oh, it's all right, it'll pass. I mean, or give you an actual thing that, this is not going to pass, you should quit.
One thing, Apurva, you and I have talked about this often, is this idea that this podcast, it's not just women talking to women, but it should be of relevance to men as well too. And that we think that changing mindset is not just about women doing a better job of mentoring other women, but men have a role to play as well in this, because it's important to the organization as a whole. I wonder, I do want to spend some time about mentorship and attributes of mentorship, but can you reflect a little bit about, to the men who are listening to this podcast, what's our responsibility?
Actually, I would say that that's the one thing that you must do as an organization, which is to get the men to think of this program as for them. Because usually it's We mentor the women, we put them in a room, we tell them this is what you should do. I don't think we're doing enough training or enough conversation with the men, because for them the society is changing. This is not what they saw when they were growing up. Most of them didn't see it. We got lucky, like we had a really ambitious and driven and successful, professionally successful parent, but mother. But that's not true for most people's experience. So what do you then, like, you have to train, you have to sensitize. And I genuinely believe that as more women are coming into the ecosystem, the men that they are either going to be sisters of or wives of are also going to have a different experience, and they are going to get a different self to work. And I think that's real change, but that's slow change because it changes with generations. To accelerate that change, I think you have to do sensitization.
Very interesting. We have a program called EACH. It's an allyship program, Anuradha, and that has changed and is changing the way we are starting to think about it, and the role that our peers, our leaders and organizations thinking around the role of men, champions, etc. It's a slow change. There is a lot to do, but I think the conversation's
journey has begun.
Has
No,
begun very well.
that's great. That's fantastic. I always said that the sons of working moms and husbands of working wives are better allies at work, more empathy. Again, like I said, it's real equality in most places. It's not even empathy. Yeah. It's just normalized.
Yeah, when I became a partner with ZS and I was telling her the equation, she said, "What's the big deal? Great. Now that you're one of them, just behave like another one." Right? So she's always told me not to wear the gender lens to everything, and that's really helped too.
So what are some, 2 or 3 really important attributes of a mentor, a good mentor? And this doesn't have to have a gender perspective either,
No,
right?
actually, I mean, like I said, I have a personal network, but I have some really good mentors from my life from in the last 20, 25 years whom I've collected, and almost all are men, because it was hard to look up. There were no other women to kind of access who were very senior. I would say, number one, you have to be interested in or have a stake in that person's life, career. You have to be truly interested in what that person is doing, right? It's not easy. So when a lot of girls will come up to me and after an event or a talk or something at work, and they'd say, "Can you be my mentor?" My first question is, I need to get to know you. We need to form chemistry. That's my belief. And then, yes, we can see whether I can be your mentor. But if you want advice, okay, I can give you half an hour if that's what you need. That advice is not necessarily mentoring. Because mentoring, I think, is, second thing I would say, is long term. Yeah. Usually it's not something you can just, it's not a therapy session. It's not just one time. It's a continuous investment and understanding of what you go through. And it's not always professional advice. Although, I mean, I think there's this thing about coaching versus mentoring, which I always get confused between, because sometimes you do one and sometimes you do the other. But you don't always give very directed advice of this is what you are doing. This is what you should go and do. There's, like you said, it's a little bit of showing the mirror as a coach, but also saying this could be your future path, or have you looked at it like this? So not thinking that you have all the answers. Yeah. But have the ability to listen and understand.
But an important part is that personal intimacy. You
need to
know you.
My belief is you need to have it, because otherwise you're dealing with the problem at a very superficial level. You don't understand the emotional underpinnings
Go
of.
take that class.
Yeah. I think you should improve your technical skills, and I think that's just advice. Yeah. And it doesn't come from a place that this person is actually feeling undervalued in an environment where they've invested a lot of time. Like I'm just giving an example, right? So telling them to go and upskill, it doesn't help. Over time, mentoring relationships make you feel good about adding value. See, I think that after a really long career, you stop talking about what I have done.
Yeah.
There is no I, right?
That's right.
This, as an individual, you can only do that much. Yeah. But what you really start enjoying is seeing the growth in the people that you're mentoring, the growth in the people that you've seen grow in front of you. And I think that is the huge joy. It is pride. And that feels like an achievement. Like it's,
I give you
See?
so much joy in that.
yeah, that's why I have to mentor you.
Okay, so
Definitely.
Anuradha, we are 2024, lots of digital AI. And in many instances, people think of these things as equalizers in this new world. And we do too. And, we think that it's not in the realm of a data scientist anymore, that we can, it opens up many roles
Yeah.
for many. How do you think of what the future holds? I mean, is the future even brighter because, it's moving in a way that allows for this parity? We don't have to wait for the next generation to transform itself, that the environment can play a role in enabling that transformation. Any reflections on that?
I think the speed of change in the digital environment is probably getting us ready to be ready for anything. So one thing I would say is that, and for some of us who've been, around the sun a few times, we need to be ready for really fast change, right? And it's not easy. We tend to lean back on things that we've done before. We talk about things that we have that have worked for us before. What has got us here is definitely not going to work, and I think that realization is really important. Careers and how they will mold themselves will change. The value that we will bring to the room will change. So I think it puts a lot of pressure on all of us to bring a different self to work. It's not parroting what you've learned in college or school. It's not just information that you've gathered through just connecting with people. It's value that you add because you can think creatively, because you can innovate on ideas, which is still something that is not in the purview of the technological world. And using these tools and training yourself to use these tools to help become efficient, I think is really important. So in the world where, we keep saying, oh, women don't use tech so much, etc., I think that's in the context of the conversation we're having today, I think it's really important to make young girls familiar and comfortable with the use of technology for skilling themselves, so that they will not again be in the same situation of, how they say that most management school entrance exams are rigged because they're testing a kind of ability which is known to be better biologically amongst the male gender. Yeah. But they're not testing for empathy, which is what makes people successful, or EQ, which makes people successful over time. So I think that it's the same element, that women shouldn't start taking a backseat saying, oh, I don't understand this, so this someone else will do and I will figure it out when it becomes mainstream. I think we have to lean in, and we have to make young girls lean in to technologies, saying, you know what?
In fact, I think
This is
it's
really
a great
critical.
equalizer. Not many people understand it too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It is getting developed. So
That's right.
Learn it together.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
So Anuradha, you talked about the internal drive in the beginning, right? And of course, you're also talking about the external stimulus through mentorship and others. What is more essential?
I think it's not an either or. I really believe that it's an and. And there are times in your life where the internal drive will soften, or it'll be doubtful, or it will feel a little like dim, right? And it happens at times when you're going through some struggle, where the external ecosystem or the external, let's say, the support system will prop you up. And I think that's what the external system is good for. It's basically, and it could be anyone. I mean, for me, my husband plays that role many times. When I'm feeling like I can't do this anymore, it's just too much work, or that guy is so political, I can't deal with it, he will often be this equanimous sort of calm river saying, that you know how to deal with it. It's not such a big problem.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. This is like saying my words back to me, but yes, but yes, you need sometimes the fact that you can't see your own wisdom sometimes. So sometimes your internal drive does dry out, and then at that time, and this example is like this example. Yeah. So I didn't have too many women to look up to inside the corporate world, but my mother is an amazing role model for us, because she did her PhD when I was 13 years old, and she went to the US to present it because no one in India could see it, and it's in physics. And I was like, who even studies physics? But yeah, of course, science is it's really important for her. When I was going through parenting and early when my kids were very young, there were times that I was like, I can't do this. This is just really hard. Like I'm working 10 hours, 12 hours a day, and then I come back and the kids are clamoring, and it's like I don't have good help, and it's just, and it's just really hard. And my mother would genuinely ask me this question of, do you think that you can live without one part of this life? Like you made the choice to have children, you wanted to have them, but do you think you can live without working? And she wouldn't answer it for me, but she would say that you should explore that. And the answer that came back was, of course not. I mean, it's not even half of me if I'm just bringing up my kids. So, and sometimes you need that ecosystem to make you see what's going on. And, and I've done that for you, and she did it for me, and we do it for people, saying, this too shall pass, and it's fine.
She gives me these, she breaks down the bigger problem that I think I made it bigger in my mind to say, okay, what can you control today? Let's go, step one. And then that really helps too.
Yeah, that helps. So I'm saying sometimes when you're feeling like all muddled with all the problems and they're feeling really large to consume. That's coming back to the question you asked, I don't think it's an either or. Sometimes the ecosystem you don't have and your drive takes you through. Like if I didn't have help or, and you're like, no, I need to do this. I need to go through it. So there was a time in one of my jobs, I was having a really tough time with my boss, and I was like, this is my Everest. I have to climb it. And despite my ecosystem telling me that, listen, are you sure this is not great for mental health and you're obviously having a tough time? But I was like, no. So sometimes it's your internal drive which overcomes it. So I think it's like a yin and yang, and it's great if it's all in balance, but that's very, very rare. So this is all like, I think you have to find that, lean in or lean out depending on what's strong at that point of time.
I'm personally of the belief that all of us are born with that internal fire, as opposed to you have to do something to kindle it.
Yeah.
I think we're all born with that, and that our environment and everything else allows it to either fan and always remain alive, or sometimes it dies, in which case you need that external stimulus to get
really
you
well
going
said,
again.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So.
Yeah.
So, you've been very fortunate. I think, Apurva, I can just see from this conversation so far that it's just lots of wisdom. I think
I'm fortunate all around to have everybody.
I think I walked away with lots of interesting insights from this conversation, or rather, this notion of being more proactive in building a concerted network is, I think, a really powerful concept, and it doesn't have to be that you have to go after work for drinks and stuff like that. There are other ways to be able to do the same thing. But take that proactive action as one. The second thing is that I think you brought home this powerful concept that mentorship is actually a two-way street. So if you go and ask somebody to be a mentor, you got to put some homework in it yourself to make sure that you're taking advantage of that. And on the other side, if you are signing up to be a mentor, make sure that you take it seriously as well. It's not like a casual conversation once in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's not useful to you or to them, but there's a certain joy in being able to enable somebody to be successful, and I think that's something. And of course, I wish I had that kind of diverse experiences. You've just been amazing in how you've been able to adapt across so many different environments, and that's a very special skill. And I certainly will reflect on many of your comments and try to internalize that in things that I do.
Thank you. You're very kind.
So thank you very much for joining Apurva and I today.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.